Hey, Larken Rosen here, and whenever I comment somewhere suggesting that people shouldn't vote for any political candidate, even before I've explained why I would say such a thing, there are a number of predictable and common responses I get, such as, well, this is the system we have, and you just want to do nothing about it, or if you don't like it, leave, or your vote is your voice, or if you don't vote, you can't complain, or, well, what's your solution? A whole bunch of predictable things that I see over and over again. If you've ever said any of those things, or commented them, or even thought them, I dare you to watch the rest of this video.
Hey everybody, if you haven't donated yet, the description below says how to do exactly that.
So when I suggest that people shouldn't vote for any political candidate and shouldn't give anyone political power, often some people will say, so you just want to do nothing? And that's not at all what I want. And by analogy, if you had a headache and someone told you that the way to solve it is to hit yourself in the toe with a hammer, and I saw you doing that, I would come up to you and say, what are you doing? And you'd say, bam, bam, I have a headache, I'm trying to cure it. I'd say, don't hit yourself in the toe with a hammer. It's not going to help. And if you said, so you just don't want me to do anything about the headache? No, I don't want you to do something that A, won't at all solve the problem, and B, will make things worse. That doesn't mean I don't want you to do anything else about the headache. So no, when it comes to political corruption, it's not that I don't want you to do anything, it's that I don't want you to do something that's going to make it worse, namely voting. And a little later I'll explain why you're making it worse if you vote for any political candidate. Another common response I hear is, well, this is the system we have, and if you don't like it, you can just get out of the country. Consider what that implies. Given the fact that being pro-freedom is why I tell people not to vote for any candidate, that basically amounts to saying, well, if you want freedom, get out of America. Is that really an argument you want to make? Another thing I hear is one version or another of, well, voting is our only way out of this. This horrible corruption, this oppressive, unjust, authoritarian monster, it's our only way out. How did we get here? How did that monster get there? Oh, all of the corruption, all of the crooked politicians, all of the nasty things they've done, they did after being voted into power. Voting is how we got here. It's not the way out of this, it's the way into this. And by the way, that's true not just in the US, but in a whole bunch of countries where nasty things are being done by governments to their own people. Now, one of the most common things I hear is if you don't vote, you can't complain. Well, think what that actually means. The people in power who've done all this corrupt stuff for all of your lifetime and going back 200 years, they were all voted into power, which means the voters were the ones who put them there and made this happen. So do you really want to try to argue that the people who vote and enable this and make this happen, well, they're allowed to complain. But the people who had no part in putting them in power, you're not allowed to complain. Is that really what you want to argue? Because it's kind of the other way around. If you legitimize the game and acted and talked as if whoever gets the most buttons pushed next to their name has the right to dominate and control the rest of us, whether you win by getting your guy in power or you lose by having the other guy in power, you enabled it. You're the one who can't complain. You played the game, and then you got the outcome that you got, which was corruption and injustice by way of the people you voted for, and by way of the people the other people voted for. The only ones who do have a right to complain are the ones who said, I'm not going to participate. I'm not empowering either of those sets of crooks. We have a right to complain because we didn't do this. You, the voters, did this. One very strange thing I see pretty often when I comment that nobody should vote for either political party is a lot of people on the left and the right, Democrats and Republicans, will assume that I'm for the other party, even though I just said don't vote for either one. Well, you must be a Trump-tard. Well, you must be a libtard. I just said don't vote for either one. And as it happens, when the left complains that I must be right-wing, the left has far more in common with the right wing than I do. And when the right wing complains, ew, you must be left wing, the right wing has far more in common with the left wing than I do. The trouble is, neither of them can even see or imagine an option outside of the realm of which jackboot, left or right, are you going to choose to have on your throat for the next few years. There is another option, but you have to think a little bit beyond what the talking heads and the politicians want you to think about. Now, some people respond by saying, well, voting third party is a wasted vote because either way, one of the two main... I didn't say vote third party. Don't vote third party. I said don't vote for any political candidate. I didn't just mean not the two main parties. I mean, don't try to put anybody on the throne. Don't try to anoint anyone as your political master. A common lament, which I somewhat sympathize with, is when people say, well, this is the system we have. This is all we can do. Well, what else can we possibly do? Well, if you're asking that as an excuse to not have to think about it and run off and vote for one of the two crooks, then whatever. If you actually want to know what else we can do, I'm going to get to that at the end of this video, because voting is never, ever, ever, ever the path to freedom. It has never been the path to freedom anywhere in the world at any point in history. Then there are those who insist your vote is your voice and democracy is freedom. I hate to break to you, and a lot of people don't want to hear this, but democracy is the best trick that tyrants have ever come up with to dupe their victims into A, imagining that they have some say in the matter, and B, tolerating a level of intrusion and oppression that they wouldn't nearly tolerate if someone just showed up and said, I'm going to boss you around because I can. If they can trick you into saying, well, you chose this, we're representing you because we gave you two people to choose from and you picked one, so you agreed, you consented to the outcome. And if you fall for that, you are the perfect subject of tyrants. And for those of you who think democracy is so great, and it's what makes the U.S. special, that we're allowed to vote. We have a constitution. We're democratically elected. This is going to kind of make you uncomfortable. Go look up the constitutions of Soviet Union, Red China, North Korea, the Weimar Republic, which turned into Nazi Germany. Guess what? They were all allowed to vote. They were all constitutional republics. They even all had a Bill of Rights. Of course, they didn't all call them a Bill of Rights. They weren't all in English. But they all followed the same template because it has such an awesome track record, not of providing freedom, but of giving enough of the illusion of freedom that the people will play the game and be abused and victimized. And instead of doing anything to actually change things, will keep playing the game and keep voting for the very crooks who rob and oppress them. And some people will say, well, if you think you can do better, why don't you run for office? As I often explain, I don't want you voting for either political crook because I don't want you giving them power to rule you. Well, guess what? I don't want you giving me the power to rule you either. Now, as it happens, I don't want the power to rule you, so that's not a threat. They do want the power to rule you. And I have to say this often because apparently people don't really think about it. When someone seeks out a position of power, i.e. runs for office, a position of power from which they can take your money and control your life, they are never, ever, ever, ever seeking that position in order to help you. Think about that. If you were trying to get permission to forcibly dominate and rob somebody else, are you going to be doing that for their own good? Of course not. Neither is any candidate of any party ever. They're going for power so they can have power over you, not so they can serve you. That mythology is just ridiculous and would be ridiculous even if we didn't have centuries of examples of government saying, we're going to represent you, and then stomping all over you. The rhetoric itself is ridiculous. Stop falling for it. But of all the people who emotionally react negatively when I suggest they shouldn't vote for either crook, they shouldn't try to put anyone on the throne, the common theme is that they're angry at me, or they even hate me for suggesting that they shouldn't play a game that ends up with someone having the ability to rob and control them. Who do you suppose might want you to hate the people who don't want you to be ruled? To hate the people who want you to be free? Because unlike any voter you will ever meet, I want you to spend every single penny of your money, or invest it, or give it away, do what you want. I want you to have control over your life, not government. Nobody who votes can say that, honestly. Democrat, Republican, I don't care. They all vote for politicians they know are going to tax you, take your money and fund things that maybe you like some of it, maybe you don't like other parts of it, doesn't matter. It's not up to you. They are trying to empower somebody who is going to control and rob you. And I'm in that small group of fringe extremists who don't want anyone to rob you, who don't want anyone to control your choices. And as long as you're not threatening or attacking other people, I don't want anyone to interfere in your life at all. And nobody who supports any political candidate or any political party can honestly say that. So why would you get mad at me, one of the very few who are actually advocating that you be free? I'm also advocating that I be free, but I don't just want me to be free. I want you to be free. If you react negatively and you get emotional and angry at me when I tell you that I want you to be free, might it be possible that somebody has tried to train you to think in such a way that you feel a gut reaction of terror at the thought of nobody forcibly dominating you, and that you react with anger to somebody saying you don't need a ruler? Think about that for a minute. And last but not least, people get frustrated when they hear me say, no, don't vote. Your vote isn't your voice. Your vote is just a way for you to go along with a game that traps you in a pile of corruption from which you will never escape, if that's the entire spectrum you can imagine. So people then turn to, well, what's your solution? Sometimes they say that just as a generic complaint, and they don't actually want to know because they don't really want to have to think outside of what they've always thought of, which is, well, here's the spectrum of left-leaning politicians ruling your life, or right-leaning politicians ruling your life, or something in between ruling your life. If you're ready to think outside of that tiny little spectrum, if you're enough fed up with the grotesque atrocity that is American politics, if you've been abused long enough that you're ready to consider something other than eeny, meeny, miny, mo between two crooked, corrupt psychopaths and putting them on a throne, then I absolutely have some things I would love to talk to you about. And I'm going to do that in other videos. To begin with, I would suggest that you read my book, The Most Dangerous Superstition, which spells out both the problem and the solution. But don't worry, if you don't want to spend anything, there's plenty of videos I have that spell it out for you for free. But first, you need to decide for yourself. When you say, well, what's your solution? Do you actually want to know? Because if the actual solution is something that doesn't match what you've been trying for years and what you've always believed and what your parents taught you and what everyone around you believes and the game they all participate in and rah, 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 democracy, representative government, if you're ready to think outside of that box, then yes, I absolutely can tell you the solution. And no, it's not putting me in power. It's not putting somebody else in power. It's keeping power over your own life yourself. And politics will never, ever give you that.
Don't forget to donate.